I think that's a real place. Oh, hello. Good evening, everybody. So, regrettable acting aside, I just want to go through a couple of changes that'll be coming up to the channel. One change I've implemented straight away, and that is I've decided to set up Patreon for the channel. A couple of reasons. One, I'd like this to become something I do like long term and permanently. And number two, I'd like to improve greatly on the content and the quality of my videos. So, what do you get? So, there are 3 tiers. Tier 1, you gain access to monthly votes for a Patreon special video, and I will create an entirely new playlist called Patreon Specials. And Tier 2, as well as monthly votes, you get direct contact with me via any social media of your choice. I will send you pictures of my progress. I'll have a little chat with you as well because I'm a nice guy. And you will also have early access to the finished pieces before the videos go live. And the final tier, tier 3, is all of the previous 2 tiers, plus you get a personalised shout out on every single one of my videos. So, it's entirely, up to you, but it's just something I've been kicking around since, 10, 20 subs. Like, more people are watching. I thought, I'll give it a go. Why not? So, what do I plan on getting with the donations I get? 100% of that is going to go straight back into the channel. So, I plan on getting a whole bunch of bits for kit bashing videos. I want to get some green stuff for modifying all minis and anything. I want to start doing videos on cheap miniatures and dragons, kind of converting them to be able to play D&D and other such with them. I'm toying with like giveaways and competitions, but I don't think, no, I won't do that as a Patreon only thing. I'll just do that as a channel thing. I plan on getting door and window, the templates, the stencils kind of thing, and I plan on getting a lot more reference books. So that's what I plan on doing. As I say, it's not compulsory, just if you would like to donate and become a Patreon, why not? So, the second part of this video was something I was discussing a little while back on a previous video, where I would just go through like the basics, the extras, and better quality items you can get for scenery building. So let's crack on with that. Now, I'm not saying these are all essential. You may have different ideas of what basics are, but this is just what I had when I started. So I'm just going to go through them all and list them. And if you're not sure about anything, just drop a comment and I will reply. So, for me, the basics were stationery, pens, pencils, rulers, all kinds of stuff like that. Sawdust and stones. For sawdust, if you go to any DIY places or places that sell and cut wood, most of the time they will have bags and bags of sawdust that they will either be throwing out or they will sell very cheap, maybe even free. For brushes, for my scenery, I just use really cheap ass brushes. I think I got 3 of this kind for like £1 at my local arts and craft all-in-one shop. For scenery, the brushes aren't terribly important because you're going to be using them a lot. You're probably going to go through quite a lot. So, yeah. Matchsticks. I use matchsticks for all sorts. Supports, railings, fences, ladders. So they're kind of useful to have. Masking tape. That's just that kind of tape. It's just useful for sticking things together as the glue dries. Cardstock. This is just really, really thin cardboard from cereal boxes and stuff like that. I always have a nail file handy as well, just for rounding off edges, and it's useful for sanding down mould lines on minis and stuff like that. Plus, if you sand the bottom of the feet and sand the little stand, it'll adhere better. Cheap paints. The paints I use for my scenery are all acrylic, and for 59 millilitres it was £1. Again, my local arts and craft shop. A cutting mat, just to protect the surface you're actually cutting on, because this is quite a nice new desk, well not new, but a bigger desk that I got, and I wanted to protect it. So, and I can imagine you'll want to protect your surface as well, so cutting mat. Sharp knives. I have all sorts for different things. I use this older one for cutting clay, then this sharper one for XPS and foam core board. I also have this one for removing harder to get to or bigger mould lines on minis. Occasionally I'll use a stapler as well if I'm ever making fences out of green scouring pads. I'll fold them in half, cut them to size, fold them in half again, and just staple them. PVA glue. Self-explanatory. This is just cheap as chips. I think this was like £1.50 for something this size. Jar lids. I use jar lids for all sorts. As you can see, this one is for my hot glue gun, just so I don't mess up the surface. Tin foil, just to texture surfaces and XPS foam. And lastly, in the basics, foam core board. So that was all the basics. Next, useful extras. So for useful extras, I like to use blue tack. It's just useful for putting on minis, then attaching it to a bit of cork, and you've got some, your hands don't get in the way when painting. Pritt sticks. I use this for a lot of things, mainly gluing modelling clay onto mini bases. Super glue, just when you don't want to wait for other glues to dry. A hot glue gun. Again, you might hear my cat running around by the way. For the same reason, it's very useful for sticking items together very quickly. modelling clay. I go through quite a lot of this. As you can see, something big like this, very cheap, £4. And that will last a long time. I've had that a good few years now. Wire brush, again, very useful. I haven't had this as long, but it's just good for adding wood grain into foam. Baking powder. If added with super glue, it makes a really good seal. So say you want to securely super glue something in place, just a little bit of super glue, a touch of baking powder, and it will just bind it very strongly. Also really useful for filling in gaps if you don't have any green stuff or modelling clay. Next, might seem obvious, but XPS foam. I go through a lot of this stuff. This pink one I got in a big, I think it was a 4x8 sheet at a building site, and I just asked if they had any spare, and they said yeah, just take one. Asked them to break it down for me, they did, and I have about 4 3/4 left of like a 2x4 in 2x4 sizes. Coffee stirrers, again, I go through these a lot, not for stirring coffee, but again, you can make ladders, fences, anything if you put your mind to it with those. Washers, again, if you've seen my video on making your own made black wash, they come in really useful for adding a lot of detail and really bringing your builds to life. Straws, I tend to use paper straws. They take paint a little bit better, but they're just useful for pipes and chimneys and stuff. Polyfiller, again, it can be moulded, made into little rocks, or just to fill in little gaps. String, I go through quite a lot of string, as you can see, just to, obviously you might want to use slightly thinner string than this, but it just adds a lot of detail. You might want to use some tweezers as well for those hard to get to pieces. Plastic glue, I go through a lot of plastic glue. Cocktail sticks, these are these big long ones. Again, I go through a lot of these making fences, and you can securely attach 2 pieces of XPS together if the 2 pieces are quite large. Barbecue sticks as well, they're like cocktail sticks but they're just slightly thicker, so they make good tree stumps and trunks and stuff like that. A mini saw, I haven't got the best quality one, but yeah, just something like that. A bits box, this is just, well, as the name suggests, just a box of bits. It doesn't even have to be, you know, mini related. You can have, you know, various greebles and interesting bits you find in your bits box. Wood stain. This was $2.99, and I found it looks really good. Just painted straight on to one of your builds. Like if you saw my windmill build, I didn't even bother painting or undercoating that. I just straight up covered it in that wood stain. and give it a really good look. And again, as with blue tack corks, these are cheap. I think it was about £2 for a pack of 10 in my local arts and crafts shop again. Clear plastic, like you get on, like toys, the plastic off there. You can create windows and lots of cool stuff with that. Green scouring pads, those rough green, I'm not sure what you call them, like Brillo pads or something. They make really good fences, hedges I should say. Just wire as well. That's the bendable thin garden wire kind of stuff. Tea lights. I've only just recently invested in some tea lights, the little battery operated ones. I can imagine I'll be getting a lot of use out of them. Sprues. I never chuck away any of my sprues. I just cut them up and put them in a box, then we'll add detail to any future builds. Sponges, just to dab on bits of paint, just so it doesn't look as uniform. Now, I haven't used bark myself, but I do keep, if I'm ever out on a walk with the dog, I do keep my eye open for bark, just cut up. If you've ever seen Bard's Craft videos, he goes through a lot of bark. Just looks like flocking. Plastic bags. Plastic bags are always going to come in handy. A face mask. Now, as with stuff that's going on in the world today, a face mask will come in useful for something else, but a different kind of face mask. This one is to stop you inhaling fumes whilst using any kind of spray paints or anything. If you're sensitive to smells whilst modelling, I suggest you use a face mask, as with a fan, like a little tabletop fan, just to get rid of fumes and such. Spray paints, it just cuts down time. Plastic rolling pin. I wouldn't suggest using your mother's best rolling pin from the kitchen. Maybe just get a cheap one, just for, again, just rolling out flat modelling clay. I mean, I always use, more often than not, I just use this Pritt stick to roll it out. But I will be, next time I'm out, I will be looking at getting just a cheap plastic rolling pin. And magic cards. That kind of magic. As you can see from the land cards, you cut out that, the sides and the top, and you've got a nice ready-made painting for some fancy detailing inside a house or whatever. That was a tip I got from Wylock, I believe. Now, onto the better quality stuff. So this is the stuff you could invest in if you really want to take this super seriously. I have a few of these. A hobby drill. That can either be one of these. I believe it's called an Archimedes drill, but don't quote me on that. This one is where you just push down that and you put a drill piece in there. You can get ones where you just turn it manually as well. I prefer this one because I've had it for such a long time. Textured rolling pin. This stuff I got from Green Stuff World. I've had it a long time. I am looking into getting a few more of these. This is just the cobblestone one. Really good stuff. Grout powder. useful for filling in gaps in between your XPS foam bricks, obviously. Just roll it on, brush off the excess, spray a little water, leave it to dry. You've got a nice looking bit of brickwork with added grout. Airbrush. I've still yet to test my airbrush. I'm a little apprehensive as the last couple of airbrushes I've got have been absolute trash. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that this one is good. Rotary tool. Again, I have just recently invested in a very, very cheap rotary tool. All the bits. I think this was like $13.99 off eBay. Become useful for texturing your wood and sanding down bigger pieces. Glass pieces. Now if you watch my mayor's house build, I used a few of these glued together for some nice looking windows, and I also have an idea for another window made with these, but yeah, just different coloured glass pieces. Balsa wood. Very, very useful, very easy to work with, very easy to cut, comes in, you know, all sorts of sizes, shapes, just super useful to have. Brass rods. These are just very, very thin ones. As you can see, you're able to bend them, so you can bend them into pretty much any shape. But unlike the cheap bendable garden wire, these are sturdier. Like you can put a bit of force on it before it actually bends. So they come in useful for like pinning bits together, or even just making your own lances. Proxon hot wire cutter. Now, it's not essential, but it is something I'd wanted for a long time. You can obviously use just a little handheld hot wire cutter, but once I got a few subs on this channel, I realised this is something I wanted to do long term, and I wanted to greatly improve my content. So I invested in a Proxon hot wire table. Tacky glue. This is really good stuff. Yeah, it doesn't take long at all to dry, and when it does dry, it is incredibly solid. Maybe can't make that out because there's paint all over it. But Mod Podge. It's a good sealant for everything. Makes your structures really solid. Plus, it, really good base coat as well. It also protects your various bits and pieces of scenery. Official Citadel or Vallejo paints. I use all kinds. These ones, obviously, I use for my mini painting. But as I said, for all my scenery, I just use cheap acrylic craft paint. And lastly, I do have somewhere, but I believe it's in a cupboard. Yeah, a hot air gun. Never know when you need one, but it's just something you can always do with. Anyway, guys, I hope you like this. Sorry if it was a bit long. And yeah, I thought I'd kind of kill two birds with one stone, like give an announcement about me now having Patreon and include it with, you know, bits and pieces and equipment. Okay guys, let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and notification bell. And if you like this, leave it a like. If you dislike, feel free to dislike, but if you dislike it, just let me know why. Then I can improve my channel. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Just stay tuned for the next video, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.